Welcome back to Grid Drop. Today we're here for episode 3 of our Assetto Corsa series. If you haven't seen episode 2, I definitely recommend checking out that video. I'll link it in the corner of your screen right now. Absolutely crazy race at Brands Hatch. We were on pole position, leading the race. Unfortunately had a bit of an issue with the pit stop, but we had to fight back to the podium and ended up on top with a overtake on the very last lap to secure the win. So definitely recommend checking that video out. Yeah, here for round 3 at the Hungary ring. If you're an F1 fan, you're very familiar with this track. It's a little bit of a skinnier circuit. It's not super easy to overtake, but I think there's some good potential for possibly a win here. Obviously coming off of a win last time out, pole position as well, so we're going to have to see our pace relative to the rest of the field, but if we can be high up in qualifying, I think there's definitely a good shot that we can have a really, really good race. So that being said, I am very comfortable with this track. I've driven it like a million times on the F1 game, so I know all the ins and outs of this track. Using this qualifying session now is just kind of a last minute checks, just to make sure I like the setup of the car, I feel balanced on track, I know the braking points, and just to make sure that I feel completely comfortable before we go out for qualifying. If you haven't seen the last 2 episodes, the way that I'm doing these race weekends is a single 10-minute free practice session, a single 10-minute qualifying session, and then the race itself is 30 minutes long. So I find that it's a pretty good format. It gives you enough laps in the race, and it also makes qualifying a lot more interesting. You have to be very careful to not make any mistakes, because if you do, that's probably maybe a quarter of the session gone. So it's very important to know the limit in qualifying and make sure you don't surpass that limit, obviously. Another important thing to note about this race specifically is that it will be our first nighttime race of the season, which is very exciting. I really love night races in GT3. There's just something really cool about seeing the cars fly around at night, overtaking, going into braking zones. It's just really, really cool to see. So it's our first nighttime race of the season. I think I'm going to sprinkle those in every once in a while. I mean, it's only about an 11 race calendar, I think. So I'll make sure to do a couple of those just to mix it up. I think it's kind of a fun thing to do. But back to this free practice session. Feeling really comfortable with the car. It feels very balanced. I was noticing a little bit of understeer, especially through those kind of twisty sections of Sector 2, but it's not really too bad. I think I was just being a little bit too harsh with the brake, so not really too worrying for me. You can see about to overtake this Lamborghini at the beginning of Sector 3. That is one thing I noticed too. I was really setting out in free practice to make sure I knew the best spots to overtake on this game. Obviously turn 1 is going to be a really big overtaking spot. It's a hard braking zone into a pretty hard right-hander, so that's definitely going to be a spot to overtake, especially up the inside. And that bit that I just overtook, that Lamborghini, that is the very beginning of Sector 3, and that's a very hard braking zone as well, with kind of a right angle right-hander, so you're going to want the inside for that corner as well, and I think that should be a pretty good place to overtake. But into qualifying now, hopefully we can see a pretty good performance. Obviously, pole position last time out, definitely pretty surprising. I wasn't expecting to be that quick around Brands Hatch, but definitely surprised myself very pleasantly. So hopefully we can do the same today. I'm thinking if we get maybe around 7th or 8th place, that'll put us in a pretty good position for a win. Like I said, those 2 braking zones are definitely really good spots to overtake, and if we're following pretty closely behind a car, I don't think it'll be that difficult to just send it up the inside and make quick work of people in front. So around 7th or 8th is probably ideal. Obviously above that will be even more ideal, but that's where we're shooting for today. So completing our first banker lap right now. You can see 6 minutes left in the session. Around the last corner right now, this sweeping long right-hander. Very important to be pretty careful on the throttle here. Too much throttle, you'll kind of wheel spin and kick the rear end out a little bit, and not enough obviously just means you're going too slowly. So across the line right now, that puts us at P5. Obviously there's a lot more laps to go, so we'll have to see where we end up. You can see the next lap now back all the way down into last place, but we've improved by over a second here coming through the last corner, and up to the line we're going to see where it's going to put us. Keep an eye on the top left hand of your screen, and that puts us in 11th place. So definitely some more time to do some laps, but 11th is not too bad for right now if the order sticks that way. But continuing on with this lap right now, 3 minutes left in the session, or almost 4 minutes I should say left in the session, so probably about 3 more laps we could squeeze in and make sure we set a good time. I'm not really too happy with the last lap I did. You could probably tell the exit and the corner entry and exit actually through the last corner were not really great. I went a little bit too deep. I was a little too late on the brakes, and it kind of killed my time. So definitely want to improve that there. Unfortunately, down on time a little bit through the first sector. Not really too brutal. Way too late on the brakes there, and unfortunately invalidating our lap. We're going to let this Ferrari go by, and that lap is over. So you can see how important it is to make sure you're managing the limit in qualifying. Obviously, since I invalidated that time, that's probably a minute gone in the session, maybe 2 minutes gone in the session. So it's very important to make sure you're not pushing too hard. But on our last lap now, you can see up in time by 0.3. We're in 21st place out of 26, so definitely need to improve. Not really having the lap I want. I was hoping I'd be up by more than 0.4. 0.5 now through the second to last corner. Definitely a good improvement, but I really thought I'd find some more time through the first 2 sectors. But up to the last corner now, gaining a lot of time through here. Obviously, we had a really bad run through this corner last lap, and now we're up by almost 0.8 or 0.7 now across the line, and that puts us in 5th position for qualifying, which is somewhat of a surprise, I'd say. I didn't think, 0.7 is a big improvement, but I didn't think it would be enough to get to 5th place. But that's 2 pretty strong qualifying performances in a row, so it seems that we're comfortable with the car, we have everything locked down, and yeah, hopefully that gives us a potential win on the cards for the race. So yeah, qualifying P5, and here we go.
Stay in double file.
Here we are on the grid, P5 for our first nighttime race of the season. Definitely very excited for this one. I can kind of feel like it's going to be a good one, but hoping for a pretty good start here. Obviously, I think we can grab a couple places down into turn 1 if we get a good start. Definitely got to time it right with the throttle when the lights turn green, but making sure to drive cautiously on the first lap, avoid any incidents, and just get on with our race. But the lights should be going green any second now, and they're green. We are racing in Hungary. Already up the inside of the Ferrari. That's 2 places off the start instantly, so that's the start we were hoping for. Sort of sandwiched between these 2 Audis, barreling down into turn 1. Gonna have to brake later than this Audi on the left to try to get that place off him and be up into P2. Sticking to the inside line, using that inside curb, squeezing him out to the outside, and luckily we have a little bit more speed. He can't make the switch back, and that is P2 pretty much solidified. So that's 3 places off the start pretty much instantly. So that's exactly the kind of start we were hoping for. Now we just have to focus on this Audi in front. I hope we can keep up with him. He'll probably have pretty strong pace, obviously running in kind of clear air and just doing his own thing. So hopefully we can stick with him at least for the time being. I'm not really going to try to push. It's the first lap. I'm just going to see what his pace is like. I think he'll probably be pretty quick. But yeah, just going to try to stick with him. I do notice you make a lot of time up through that corner. The AI seem to brake a little bit earlier than they have to. Especially in the night races, it's easier to tell where they're braking because the brake lights illuminate the track below. So that's what's kind of nice about the night races. So I think the game plan for now, just stick close to this guy, brake a little bit later if we can than he is, just try to slowly chip away at this gap in between us. So yeah, that's our game plan. Just try to stick with this guy and see what his pace is like. But here's a replay of the start. Pretty solid move, sticking to the inside curb, squeezing that Audi out a little bit, still leaving enough racing room. He didn't really have to sort of duck out of that move the way he did, but you know, it's a free place for me, so I'm not really complaining. But back to the race now. We're on the main straight, slipstreaming behind this Audi. We could potentially go for a move here. It's going to be really, really tight. Really late lunge into turn 1. Hopefully we can get alongside him, stick to the inside curb, try to keep this line nice and tidy, squeeze him to the exit curbs. Hopefully that slows him down a little bit, but it looks like we're going to have a drag race down into turn 2. He's still alongside, pretty much at our left rear. He's going for a move up the inside now into turn 2, so we're racing side by side through turn 2. I have the outside line. Luckily that will turn to the inside line if we can stick close enough to this Audi. Unfortunately, a little bit too far behind. Have to back out of that move. Now we're under pressure from the Audi behind, and we got spun. Spun on the second lap of the race. We're losing positions like crazy. P7, P8, 9th place, 10th place. Man, that is pretty heartbreaking. But into P11 now. I'm going to try to make up time with these guys. Luckily, the pack is still bunched up really close together, so hopefully we can, you know, gain some time through here and you know, just keep our head down, keep grinding, and get back up into the podium positions. We'll see a replay here. This is the move right after the move into turn 1, racing side by side, pretty much a drag race down into turn 2. You can see he has the inside line into turn 2, so he's going to dive down the inside. I'm going to take a wider line around the outside of turn 2. My thinking here was that if I take the outside of turn 2, I'll have the inside for turn 3 and then onto that small straight. Unfortunately, got a little bit pinched to the curb, had to back out, and backed out too far, and you can see that's where I made contact with the Audi into third place. So we can see here from a couple camera angles, I wasn't moving to the left, so we can see the Audi's point of view here. You can see he has plenty of room on the curbs to the left. He's not really in danger of running off the track, and he just sort of locks his wheel to the right, pretty much guaranteeing that he's going to spin us out. So I'm not really too sure why he did that. I thought I might have been squeezing him out a little bit too hard, and maybe that's why he sort of just turned into us, but he had plenty of room, so I'm not really too sure, so I guess I'll put that blame on him. But anyway, back to the race. P11 right now. Definitely looks like we go for a move here. It's going to be kind of a late lunge into this start of the third sector here, and that's pretty easy work of that Aston Martin. Definitely a later lunge than I would hope for, but worked out for the best. So unfortunately, we do have a little bit of damage. The car feels a little unsteady. The rear, for the most part, feels a little bit slippery. That is kind of annoying because we're going to have a longer pit stop now. You can see correcting some wheel spin on the exit of the last corner. So skipping ahead a little bit now on lap 3. Just kind of not really ideal. Fighting for the lead, obviously, and then we get spun out. So not ideal, but that's racing. So we're going to have to keep our head down. Luckily, we are in the points. We're in P10 now. So not all is lost, but we're probably going to get dumped way at the back of the field once we have a very long pit stop to repair this damage. So I will probably want to pit as soon as I can just to get the car back to feeling balanced. The rears just feel like it just feels like my tires are made of ice. So probably some damage to the rear wing, but going for a move here up into P9 now. Very similar move to what we did on that Aston Martin the lap before, and that's P9 secured. Pretty light work to pass that Audi there, but still got a lot of work to do to get back up into the podium positions. I do really want to keep my head down and get up there, but it's definitely going to be tough. So a little replay here, that move on the Audi. Pretty solid. I'm going to try to race very cautiously now. Obviously now my rear wing is sort of destabilized, so it's hard to know the limit of the car now, considering I'm used to a more balanced setup. So definitely going to drive a little bit more cautiously than normal, especially through these twisty sections right here. It's very important to be very careful with the brake. If you're too hard on the brake, you sort of lock your wheels and end up kind of understeering to the outside line, and it compromises your line for the next corner. So very important to be light on the brakes, and almost brake earlier than normal, and just keep light on the brakes, and that way you can continue to have traction throughout the corner and set yourself up for a good corner entry on the next corner. But pit window is now open. Catching up to this BMW in front, I'm going to try, I think, to stay out one more lap and see if I can pass this guy before we get into the pit lane. If we can't, then we're definitely going to have to box. I think the damage might be costing us a lot of time. It's really hard to say at this point. I mostly feel it on corner exit. I just feel very unstable. I'm not really too sure how much time we're losing from that damage, but we're just going to have to see. Do one more lap, kind of test the waters, and just see if we can make up any time. Unfortunately, skipping a lap ahead now, 18 minutes left in the race. Pit window is still open, obviously, and this BMW is pretty much staying consistently ahead of us. We're not really making up that much time. He's not racing anyone either, so it's just going to come down to raw pace. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have that pace, just because of that damage. So probably going to box this lap, just make sure we can get that damage repaired, and hopefully not get dumped at the very back of the field after the pit lane. So we'll have to see where that puts us. But coming up to pit entry now, probably just the best time to box. We're not really gaining any time, and it's probably just better to repair this damage sooner and get a move on with this race. So kind of unfortunate, obviously, fighting for the lead, and that happens, it sucks, but we are in the points, luckily. So if our pit stop's not too slow, we can definitely have a shot at points today. But yeah, not ideal, but you never know what'll happen in the race. So if there's an incident ahead or some mistakes or maybe a slow pit stop from other drivers, then we'll definitely see some redemption in this race. But as for now, we just gotta do our own race, keep an eye on the time, keep an eye on the gaps, and make sure we avoid mistakes, and at least bring the car home in one piece. But exiting the pits now, rejoining the racetrack. It was a pretty long stop. It was probably about maybe 50 seconds to repair the damage, so really not ideal. That's probably 20 seconds longer than the AI, so that's gonna definitely take a big chunk out of our total race time. But emerging in 20th out of 26th is not ideal. There's going to be people exiting the pits now. You can see another Aston Martin exiting the pit lane. Hopefully we can go for a move on this guy pretty soon. That's definitely the strategy now, is just get as many places as we possibly can as quickly as possible. So just important to stay focused, hit the braking zones correctly, keep the lines nice and neat, and make sure that we're just gaining time on the cars in front. So a lot of work cut out for us the rest of this race, but we're going to have to just put our head down and get through it. Gaining a lot of time on this Aston Martin now, about to turn into lap 9. Luckily, we've gained so much time in the span of a lap. But the most important thing for the rest of this race is definitely to be consistency. You got to stay consistent, make sure your lap times are the same, and it just will slowly chip away at the guys in front. Luckily, the pack should be pretty spread out. The pit window's still open, so we might get a couple of free positions here and there from passing people in the pits. But unfortunately, most of the people we were fighting at the beginning are probably long gone. P10 is probably the maximum. But anyway, in the slipstream of this Aston Martin, looking potentially down the inside for a move. It's going to be a little bit late. Definitely very tight, sticking to the inside, very similar to the moves we've done on lap 1 and 2, and that's pretty quick work of that Aston Martin. So he's behind us now, and now we can keep moving forward, and hopefully we can catch up a little bit more to the pack in front. Like I was saying, P10 is probably going to be the maximum. I'm not really too sure if that's even going to be on the table. Those guys that we were fighting are definitely really far ahead. We got to make up a lot of time to get back into the points, so gonna be quite the struggle. But catching up to the next car in front, he actually just exited the pits, and P19 now. Unfortunately, not really gaining any free positions from people in the pit lane. I think it's just too late in the pit window. I think most people already did their stop, so I was hoping if we got a couple positions from just passing people in the pit lane, then we would potentially be looking at P10 if we had a good rest of the race, but unfortunately, that might not be the case. So we're going to have to see how it ends up. You never know in racing. People could just start flying off the track or something, and then, you never know. It's the race can turn on its head at any moment. So that's what's important, is to, keep fighting and make sure your lap times stay consistent. Never really give up or kind of slack off. But definitely making up a lot of time to this Audi now. 2 NSXs fighting in front of us. We're on lap 11 now. 7 minutes left in the session. These NSXs are fighting pretty hard. They're going side by side through this twisty section of Sector 2. It looks like we could potentially go for a move on this Audi in the hard braking zone of the beginning of Sector 3, but it looks like we're actually going to go for a move now. Caught him napping a little bit right there, right up the inside. Very, very sneaky little move up the inside of that Audi. Can't really go for a move right here into this hard braking zone, a little bit too far back from these Acuras, but I think we should be able to go for a move at least by turn 1 after the main straight. We'll probably make up a lot of time on the main straight in the slipstream. So these guys stop battling. One car got in front of the other. They're a little bit more spaced out, and it looks like we can even go for a move right here, really, really close to that Acura, taking the inside of the last corner. Really trying to modulate the throttle here, make sure we keep traction onto the main straight and don't compromise our exit. But that was a pretty good sequence of moves there. You can see a replay going up the inside of that Audi. Definitely caught him napping. He was definitely not expecting a move at that corner. It's a little tight to be overtaking there, but catching up to this NSX now, you can see how close we were. Really, really forcing him to the outside. I was very late on the brakes there. I really wanted to make that move work as quickly as possible, and just stick to that game plan. We really got to, pass as many cars as we can as soon as possible. So up into P17 now, still very far down the order compared to where we were at the beginning of the race, but hopefully we can get this guy soon and make up some more time to the cars in front. Unfortunately, the gaps in front are pretty big. It's about a second to this car in front, and the car in front of him is 5 seconds away from me. So we'd have to be looking at around a second lap to get those places back. So unfortunately, points most likely not on the table today unless something crazy happens. But I'm going to keep pushing. Hopefully we can get this guy pretty quick. Hopefully by the end of this lap, maybe into that hard braking zone of Sector 3. If not, we can probably go for a move into Turn 1. But yeah, just kind of a stinker of a race. Really disappointed. We're fighting for a win, and now we're, hoping to get P16, which is, not ideal, especially coming off that high from that pole position and win last round at Brands Hatch. That was an unbelievable race, and now it's kind of completely the opposite. But gonna keep trying. Hopefully, catching up to this Audi sooner rather than later. You can tell from his brake lights he's braking a little bit earlier than I am, especially through here, making up a lot of time into that braking zone. Barely staying on the track right there, using the full width of the track, the exit curbs, and using the inside curve as well to make sure that we're, maximizing our time through that corner. Very wide on corner exit right there too. Braking a little bit early into the last corner, trying to set myself up for a really good exit. Really hard on the power now, slamming throttle down, trying to get into the higher gears as soon as I possibly can, trying to get into the slipstream, hopefully going for a move into turn one. We look like we're a little bit far back, but I think we've made farther back work for us this race. Heavy braking now, definitely looking for a move up the inside, sticking to the inside curb, really using the whole width of the track there, forcing him outside, and he has to back out of that move. And that is job done. Pretty much copy and paste from all the other moves we've done this race on turn one. So yeah, that's pretty much the race. No time left on our final lap, or about to be our final lap. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. Unfortunately, the guys in front are a little bit too far ahead. You can see the gaps on the screen in the bottom left. Just a little bit too far in front. You can barely even see them on the track going around turn one. So now we just got to focus on keeping this Acura behind, solidify P16. Obviously not the result we wanted, but stuff like this happens. It's important that you can bounce back from it. So hopefully next race we'll be able to be fighting for a podium or potentially a win. We definitely had a win on the cards today. That Audi in front was looking pretty quick, but if we just stayed consistent when we passed him, we pretty much just could have parked the bus and made sure he didn't overtake. It's pretty easy to just park the bus on the Hungary ring. It's a very skinny track. There's not really too much space on the track to overtake, and there's only two real guaranteed braking zones where you can go for a move up the inside or something like that. So if we were in first place, what the strategy probably would have been just park the bus, sit there, and take it easy, maintain the pace, be consistent, avoid mistakes, and we probably would have taken a win home. But unfortunately that wasn't the case. But if you've made it this far into the video, let me know in the comments about that incident. Personally, I don't think I was squeezing him out too much. However, I don't think that, but if he locked his wheel to the right, that shows me that maybe he was, and we just couldn't really see it from that camera angle. Just let me know in the comments if you think that was my fault or his fault, or it could just be labeled as a racing incident. I'm not really too sure, but I'm definitely interested to see, because I'm probably a little bit biased towards myself in that instance. So yeah, let me know if you think that was my fault or the AI's fault there. But pretty much across the line right now, race over, P16, obviously not the result we wanted, especially coming off that win last round, and especially fighting for the lead on those opening laps. So not really the result we wanted, but it happens, it's racing, and what's important is that we bounce back. So kind of a bummer for our first night race. I was hoping we'd get a good result, at least a podium or top 5, or at least some points, but it happens. So if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I know it was kind of a stinker of a race, probably not the most entertaining to watch. If you want a more entertaining video, the first 2 episodes were really good. The first one was in Silverstone, pretty solid race there, and the second one was in Brands Hatch. It was the second round of the season. Obviously went for the pole position and the win there, so that was a really good race. So check those videos out. I linked them at the beginning, and I'll link the first episode at the ending card right here at the end of the video. But if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. I know kind of a stinker, but I appreciate it if you made it this far, especially my commentary is pretty trashy, so I'll work on that in the future. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.